Hello, Tashina Lynette, your favorite holistic business coach here, and I'm here with a self-development topic. I'm doing an updated version of my presentation, The 4 Temperaments Personality Profile. This has been studied in different formats. What we're going to concentrate on this one, which is the one that's used in many organizations, corporations, and business settings, is DISC. But if you come from the multi-level marketing world, you may have heard of the colors. If you came from a psychology setting and it came to you through perhaps a therapist, you may have heard of the people code or personality plus. So we're going to deep dive the important aspects of each of these to put it together with the purpose of you knowing yourself better and being able to speak the language of other people around you. To be very clear, this is not meant to put you in a box. And when you look at the list, they're not going to be exhaustive, nor is everything on one of those lists going to apply to you. But there are some key things that you can take away in order to interact better with people in your life. So with that, let's get started. So I love just knowing the origin and history of things. So the origin of this, the idea of the 4 temperaments traces back to an ancient Greek medical theory that there were 4 fundamental bodily humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm, which could cause illness if they were out of balance. The terms sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic were coined by the Greek physician Aelius Galenus to describe the effect of these humors on human behavior. This idea is perhaps one of the oldest that looks like a theory of personality. The 4 temperaments have never been a part of modern medicine or psychological science, but remain fairly well known due to their use by self-help and spirituality authors. So here's where we start. DISC, personality profile. And again, as we go through this, I'm going to refer you back to these letters. So the first time that I heard of this, I was 14 years old. My mom came home and she said, "We did this personality profile at work. And I did yours too. And you know what? I found out that you were D. You're direct, you're demanding, you're decisive." And my first thought when she said that was, why are you saying that like it's a bad thing? My second thought was, I wonder where I get it from, because I sure don't get it from my dad. And it turns out that she is a CD, and I am actually an ID. If you look to your left, you can see the intersections there. So D is the dominant one. And so even when you're an ID, you see that D is very big there. So that is what I am. I am an ID, and you can see around the circle the combinations that a person may traditionally have. You may also find too, when we get into personality plus, that you may have 1 dominant one and 2 secondary ones. But this is the general framework. So if we move over to the middle here, again, that D, which is part of my personality, it's my secondary personality, tends to be direct, demanding, decisive, determined, and a doer. You can see that they are outgoing and they're task-oriented. So if we move over to the right, my first dominant personality is inspiring. That is influencing, impressionable, interactive, impressive, involved. They're outgoing and people-oriented. As we continue to move around the circle, we come to our S. They are supportive, stable, steady, sweet, status quo, and can come off as shy. They tend to be reserved and people-oriented. And then we move to our C, which is cautious. They're calculating, competent, conscientious, contemplative, and careful. Excuse me. So as you move over to the right, we have another one here. And it shows us again the interaction. We have our D. Again, Results oriented. They tend to challenge as well. They're action oriented. We move over to our I. I is also very action oriented. They're enthusiastic. They like to collaborate because they're people oriented. We move over then to our S. They also like to collaborate. They're more of the support. They tend to bring stability. We move over to the C. They also are going to bring a sense of stability. They love accuracy, and they're going to challenge ideas. So this is our basic framework. Another framework that brings something extremely important is the people code. So the people code goes by colors, which can be confusing because there's other colors. So again, I'm going to refer to the disc so you're clear on which ones we're talking about, so we don't get confused with colors. And the most important thing that you can get out of the people code is your core motive. The core motive is extremely important because for a while I was mistyping myself, because you can actually display more often or in a public setting one of the personalities, and that can appear to be your dominant personality. And when you go back to your core motive, then you know what your true one is. So for a long time, I was coming off or even testing in certain tests as a D, then a C, which I was fairly certain that the C was faked because I have parents that are C's. I have a father who is a CS and a mother who is a CD. So most of myself and my siblings, we learned a lot of C. And then I would come up as an I. When I took the people code, though, I came up as an ID with very little anything else. And the reason why is because it looks at the core motive. So the core motive for a D is power. And their natural talents are leadership, vision. The core motive for a C is intimacy. And their natural talents are quality service. The core motive for an S is peace. And their natural talents are clarity and tolerance. The core motive for an I is fun. And their natural talents are enthusiasm and optimism. So why is it that this switched it around for me? You see, I did a lot of D behaviors, shown here as red. And the reason that I did them, though, was to get my needs met as an I. So for example, I was a straight A student. I was the teacher's pet. When they said, Sheena, the valedictorian doesn't want to do the speech. You're the salutatorian. Do you want to do it? I was like, yes. And so I appear to be all those driving, determined, all those things, which I am, and I do have some of that. But the actual reason, my motivation, was because it got me pats on the head. It got me attention. I thought being on stage was fun. I thought doing those things were fun. So I actually filtered my I through the D, and I came off very often as a D because that was the best way for me to get my needs met. It didn't seem like people gave me attention when I just tried to be fun and cute, but I could get that attention if I did things that were a D. So again, the D are the power wielders. Power, the ability to move from point A to point B, to get things done, is what motivates and drives these people. They bring great gifts of vision and leadership and are generally responsible, decisive, proactive, and assertive. So again, this is my secondary personality, and most of that still applies to me, but it's what comes to me second. And my motivation usually isn't power. C, their motive is intimacy. They're the do-gooders. Intimacy, connecting, creating quality relationships, and having purpose is what motivates and drives these people. They bring great gifts of quality and service and are generally loyal, sincere, and thoughtful. S are the peacekeepers. Peace, the ability to stay calm and balanced, even in the midst of conflict, is what motivates and drives these people. They bring great gifts of clarity and tolerance and are generally kind, adaptable, and good listeners. My dominant personality, are fun lovers. Fun, the joy of living life in the moment, is what motivates and drives these people. They bring great gifts of enthusiasm and optimism and are generally charismatic, spontaneous, and sociable. Now, here's the colors that you are generally, again, if you're in the network marketing, multi-level marketing, you may be familiar with many books that use this. So we start here with our S's, and we're talking about tendencies here. So again, everything on this list may not be applicable to you, but you go back to that core motivation to see which one you are, and some things may apply. So our S, love to help others, tend to put their needs last, enjoy encouraging others, and comfortable behind the scenes. Our C, researcher, very methodical, slow to make decisions, tend to be uncomfortable in new situations, likes facts and dates. Then moving down to where we see our red, that color tends to be consistent. That's our D, self-motivated, driven to succeed, leader and planner, well organized, comfortable taking charge. Then we move over to our I, loves to have fun, life of the party, enjoy meeting new people, and tend to love to travel. Now we have a list of tendencies. Once again, please understand that not necessarily everything on this list is going to fit because everyone is a combination. And again, we're not using this as an excuse of things we can't and can't do. We're just trying to figure out our tendencies, what our strengths can be, where we should work, and how to create better teams by allowing other people to be in their strengths. D, dominant, driver. Their general characteristics, they tend to be direct, decisive. They have high ego strength. That means that they tend to have a pretty high sense of self and don't get knocked off balance very easily. They tend to be problem solvers, risk takers, self-starters. The value that they bring to the team is that they're the bottom line organizer. What does that mean? So when you say that the D's have leadership and they're the bottom line organizer, they like to do overall organizing. For example, I'm the person who is going to be in charge of an overall event. I'm going to assign the task. I'm going to get a list of the things that need to be done. But then when I'm in the event, say I've assigned someone to do the decorations. Person walks over to me with all the decorations in their hand. And they're like, where do you want me to put these? I'm like, I don't know. I assigned that to you. I don't want to be in the details. I'm the bottom line organizer. I gave you that job. I want you to do the details of that job. Places high value on time. Yes, I do this all the time. I know exactly how long it takes to get anywhere. Challenges the status quo. Innovative. Possible weaknesses, oversteps authority. Argumentative attitude. Dislikes routine. Attempts too much at once. Their greatest fear is being taken advantage of. So if we look to the left, we see that the D, along with the C, is a task-oriented style. What does that actually mean? Here's another thing that people misunderstand all the time. You can be a people person, but not necessarily be people-oriented all of the time. Because I operate a lot of times in my D, I can operate very task-oriented. So a person who's people-oriented thinks about people and their feelings first. A person who's task-oriented thinks of the task and results first. So someone says to a D, you really shouldn't say that. That's going to hurt so-and-so's feelings. They think, but it's the truth. And I'm trying to get to here. So the better thing to communicate would be, you really shouldn't say that, because it may hurt so-and-so's feelings and they're not going to do the task you're requiring them to do. Understanding that it's not going to get the desired result or task done is going to motivate and sound better to a D and or a C. Now we move to the I. Influencing and inspiring. General characteristics. They tend to be enthusiastic, trusting, optimistic, persuasive, talkative, impulsive, and emotional. The value they bring to the team. Creative problem solver, great encourager, motivates others to achieve, positive sense of humor, negotiates conflicts, and peacemaker. Possible weaknesses, more concerned with popularity than tangible results, inattentive to detail, overuses gestures and facial expressions, and tends to listen only when it's convenient. Their greatest fear is rejection. So the D and the I are active styles. They like to be in motion, like to be in movement, like to be active. And again, the I, as well as the S, are people-oriented. Moving on to the S. Stable and steady. General characteristics. They tend to be a good listener, team player. They can be possessive, tend to be steady, predictable, can be understanding, and friendly. The value they bring to the team, reliable and dependable. Loyal team worker, compliant towards authority, good listener, patient and empathetic, good at reconciling conflicts. Possible weaknesses, resist change, takes a long time to adjust to change, holds a grudge, sensitive to criticism, difficulty establishing priorities. Their greatest fear, loss of security. This is a passive style, so they generally tend to be okay with being in the background and going with the flow. And again, they're people-oriented. C, compliant and correct. General characteristics. They tend to be accurate and analytical. They tend to be conscientious and careful. They tend to be fact-finders. They tend to be precise. They tend to have high standards. They tend to be systematic. The value they bring to the team, perspective. They're the anchor of reality. Conscientious and even-tempered. Thorough in all activities. They define situations, gathers, criticizes, and tests information. Possible weaknesses, needs clear-cut boundaries or actions for actions and relationships. Bound by procedures and methods. They can get bogged down in details. They prefer not to verbalize feelings and will give in rather than argue. Their greatest fear is criticism. Now we move on to personality plus. So these has a little bit of extra information defining interactions and some of the qualities. So we start out with our I in our left quadrant, our popular sanguine. We can see from this quadrant, again, they are relationship-oriented. We referred to that as people-oriented before and explained what that meant. They tend to be witty and easygoing. They are artistic and emotional. They tend to be okay with leading. They're outgoing, optimistic, and outspoken. So if you think about that artistic and emotional, that's going to be in an outgoing, demonstrative way. It's going to be very clear. We move over then to our D, and we can see that they have in common that they tend to like to lead. They're outgoing, optimistic, and outspoken. Because of that, the DI or ID, which is what is shown here and what I am, tends to be a natural blend. They have things that can balance each other out, because we see that the powerful choleric, or the D, is unemotional and strong-willed, decisive and organized, and task-oriented. Now we see as we move from the D, and we see that this can be combined also with another blend that is called our complementary blend. So if we have our DC, this is a complementary blend. It's complementary because they have even more things to balance each other out. Because the D is outgoing, optimistic, and outspoken, while the C, perfect melancholy, is introverted, pessimistic, and soft-spoken. The perfect melancholy is going to go inward and analyze and be artistic and emotional, but in a very inward way. They're going to be goal-oriented. And then they're going to, at times, have those other qualities of the D that we already mentioned. Moving to the bottom, and now reviewing our S, or peaceful phlegmatic. This is what we call another natural blend, because our S and our C tend to be introverted, pessimistic, and soft-spoken. They both like to analyze. Where they differ, inwardly, the C is going to be goal-oriented and artistic and emotional, whereas our S is going to be unemotional and strong-willed and not goal-oriented generally. Our other complementary blend that we have is our SI or IS, and that's because they complement and balance out in the fact that our I is outgoing, optimistic, and outspoken, and our S is introverted, pessimistic, and soft-spoken. Our I is going to be outwardly, demonstratively, in an outgoing way, artistic and emotional, witty and easygoing, and okay with leading some of the time. But our S is not going to be too goal-oriented, unemotional and strong-willed, inwardly, and going to analyze some of the time. So here we have another chart. It brings so many things together on this chart. And again, it gives us a little bit more information. This is how something that you want to keep in mind when you're communicating with other people, if you know what they are. So for example, starting with our D that we have here in the left quadrant. The question that you always need to answer for the D, if you're getting them to get involved, to share, is what? They want to know what's going on. Our D again is our driver. The animal that's shown here that might be something in another different framework is the lion. Another framework has them as a triangle. We talked about that powerful choleric. And you can see the colors are in one of our color schemes. And as you can see on the left, they tend to be a left brain. That goes back to our task-orientedness, and they like to control. Going to the top, both our D and our I are fast-paced, extrovert, and optimistic. And both our D and our I like to tell things. They're talkative. So we move now over to our I. And the question that we're answering for our I is why? Why should I do this? They need to know it's going to be fun. They're expressive. Their animal is a squirrel. Their shape is the squiggle. They're more right brain. And you can see that they are purpose and people oriented, as opposed to the D that is goal and task oriented. And again, they're going to tell. Moving down to our S or our steady. Their question is going to be who? Who can I help? Who's going to be there? They're a peaceful phlegmatic. We got their dog. They're so loyal, amiable. They're a circle. They're right brain. They emote. Again, they're purpose and people oriented. As we go to the bottom, we see they're slow paced, introvert, and pessimistic. And our S and C are going to ask more than they tell. Moving over now to our C, their question is going to be how. They're going to ask more of the details. They want to know, how does this work? Again, they're slow-paced, introvert, and pessimistic. They're analytical. They're the beaver. They're the square. They're compliant. They're left brain, goal, and task-oriented. Now, usually when you go through this, they give you examples of people who fit in the personality types. So here's some famous Ds. David Letterman, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Tiger Woods. Famous Is, Jay Leno, Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, and Steve Martin. Famous S's, Barbara Bush, Jimmy Carter, Michael J. Fox. Famous C's, Tom Brokaw, Bill Gates, Diane Sawyer, Alan Greenspan. So as you can see, you can be successful no matter what your personality is. And here are some resources. So my favorite test on this is thispersonalitytesting.com. I love this test because it actually gives you two outputs. It gives you what you will be at your work personality. That is where you will see that I will come out more of a D because that is what I want. That's my public persona. That's what I want people to see. But it'll also give you what your true personality is. And that's where you'll see that my dominant will come out as an I. Personality Plus, how to understand others by understanding yourself. Love this framework. Of course, when you're going through it, this was the one that mentioned the powerful choleric, sanguine, perfect melancholy, peaceful phlegmatic, popular sanguine. So you're going to need to know how to translate that into your disc personality. But I just love this one. It gives so many details and so understanding. And then the people code. This is the one that goes into the motive. It also will, both of these will also have a test within it. And again, the people code is super important to understand that motive so that you know what your true core personality is. And definitely follow me for more sources. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe so you can get tons of other resources like this. I'd love for you to follow me on LinkedIn. You can see the link there, as well as Instagram, SweetCanella5. Find me on Twitter at JustSweetCanella. And Facebook, if you want to attend classes that I have on a regular basis, you can find me at vidactiva.life. Thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to sharing another amazing topic with you at a later time.